All right, so today we're headed somewhere you think you know, the Land of Oz. But we're gonna go way beyond the movie, beyond the yellow brick road, to uncover the sprawling, super strange, and totally wonderful world that L. Frank Baum actually created.
You know this moment, right? Dorothy's little Kansas farmhouse just plops down, not with a crash, but gently. She opens the door, and boom, it's this explosion of color and magic. It's the start of one of the most famous adventures ever written. Here's the thing, that story, it's just the tip of the iceberg. The world L. Frank Baum built across 14 books is so much bigger, so much weirder, and way more complicated than any one movie could ever capture. What we know is just page one. So let's start with a classic example. You know those iconic ruby slippers? They were invented for the Technicolor movie. In the original book, Dorothy had a pair of powerful silver shoes. And that little change, it's the perfect symbol for just how different the Oz on the page is from the one we know on screen. Okay, but first, let's start on some familiar ground. At the heart of that first story, you've got this journey of three incredible friends, and each one is looking for something they're absolutely convinced they don't have. So first up, you've got the Scarecrow. He is 100% certain he doesn't have a brain. But, from the second they meet him, he's the guy coming up with all the best plans. The whole time he's on a quest for something he's already using. And then there's our friend the Tin Woodman. He desperately wants a heart so he can feel things. And yet, this is the guy who literally cries rust tears if he accidentally steps on a bug. His actions are screaming that he's got more heart than anyone else on the road. And of course, the Cowardly Lion. He's so ashamed of being afraid all the time. All he wants is a little courage. But think about it. Every single time his friends are in trouble, who's the first one to jump in front of them roaring and ready to fight? He's brave from the very beginning. All right, now we get to the really fun part. Buckle up, because this is where L. Frank Baum's imagination just goes completely off the rails in the best way possible. The characters Dorothy meets later on are just wonderfully bizarre. So, meet Tick-Tock. He's this round, copper clockwork man, basically one of the very first robots in all of literature. And he has to be wound up to do anything. There is one key for his thoughts, one for his speech, and another for walking. He's an amazing friend. As long as he doesn't run down mid-sentence. And this is Jack Pumpkinhead. A wizard brought him to life with some magic powder. His body is just these rickety wooden sticks, and his head is a literal pumpkin. He's super gentle and kind, but he lives in this constant state of anxiety that his head is going to rot and he'll have to carve a new one. And then there's this guy, Professor H.M. Wogglebug T.E. He started life as a regular old bug, right? But then a professor projected his image on a screen, making him highly magnified, and he just stayed that way. He escaped, got himself thoroughly educated, and now he's this delightfully pompous academic character. Oh, and the list just keeps going. There's a living sawhorse that acts as a horse, a flying machine they build called the Gump, which is made of 2 sofas, a mounted animal head, and some palm leaves. There's a whole town of tiny, living porcelain people who are terrified of cracking. And then there are the Wheelers, these terrifying guys who have wheels instead of hands and feet. Now, you might think this is all just random, weird stuff. But no, see, this totally bizarre world runs on its own very specific and often very strange set of rules. Take the Emerald City. In that first book, its famous green glow is actually a giant trick. Everyone who enters the city has to wear green-tinted glasses that get locked onto their face. It was the wizard's way of making sure everything looked dazzlingly green, whether it actually was or not. Pretty clever, huh? And the society itself is this kind of quirky utopia. There's no money, people just take what they need, everybody works for half the day and plays for the other half. But maybe the biggest rule of all is that no one in Oz can ever actually die. You can be taken apart or transformed or disenchanted, but you can't be killed. And that leads to some pretty wild situations. But yeah, don't get too comfortable in this utopia, because for all its magic and wonder, Oz has some real shadows. There are some genuine dangers and truly creepy things lurking just off the yellow brick road. And this is where you get this incredible contrast. On the one hand, you've got this peaceful, happy society. On the other, you've got silent, flying wooden gargoyles, a princess with a closet full of exchangeable heads, and a king who turns his enemies into little knickknacks. It's a fairy tale existing right next to some serious nightmare fuel. A major villain in the later books is the Gnome King. He's this super powerful, greedy monarch of an underground kingdom, and his whole thing is trying to conquer Oz. His favorite hobby? Using his magic to turn living people into inanimate objects for his collection.
And then there's Princess Languedere, who might be one of the creepiest characters ever. She owns 30 different beautiful heads that she keeps in a cabinet, and she just swaps them out depending on her mood. When she meets Dorothy, she decides she just has to have Dorothy's head for her collection and offers to trade her for a prettier one. Yeah.
So after all this, the utopia, the nightmares, the clockwork men, the pumpkin heads, what is it? Why are we still so fascinated by this world more than 100 years later?
I think it lasts because it's not just one story. It's a complete world, a truly American kind of fantasy, and it's just overflowing with invention. It's got wonder, it's got real horror, and there's always this amazing sense of discovery. Every book just opens another door to some new, strange corner of Oz. And ultimately, that really gets to the heart of it all. The first journey was about characters finding what was already inside them all along. The world of Oz is so big and so magical, it kind of asks us to imagine our own journey. It really makes you wonder, if you were the one to land there, what would you truly be searching for?